Speaking of going to the right, we're going to talk to a conservative Hollywood screenwriter right now. That's interesting. His name is Andrew Klavan, and he wrote Clint Eastwood's True Crime, and then the movie Don't Say a Word. He was also a screenwriter. That starred Michael Douglas. So, Andrew, welcome to the Young Turks.
Thanks a lot. It's good to be here.
Hi, it's good to have you here, and I see that you're writing all over the internet, BigHollywood.com, Daily Beast. So you got an issue with Avatar, if I've got this right. What do you think is the problem with the movie Avatar?
Well, I kind of have to look at it as two different films. I mean, when I go and I look at it as a pure visual feast, as a technological achievement, it's amazing, and nobody can say it's not. I mean, I watched the whole thing with my jaw dropped, and it's an amazing thing to look at. As a work of the imagination, it sucks. It's tripe. I mean, for one thing, it's one of the least original films ever made. I mean, the plot is stolen directly from Walt Disney's Pocahontas and from Dances with Wolves. Some guy on the internet put the plot of Pocahontas online and just filled in the names from Avatar, and it works perfectly. Secondly, it's got this attitude toward the U.S. military that is so trashy and so cliched, and it's in every Hollywood film. I mean, there must be now 15 films on the War on Terror, and in every single one of them, our soldiers are sadistic, murdering, torturing killers, instead of the guys they really are, which is the most humane fighting force that's ever been assembled or marshaled on the face of the earth. So that's just childish. I mean, it's got these Navi, these primitive peoples who are worshiping the sacred earth, and the evil soldiers come to attack them. And all I could think was, like, how do you think they feel in Haiti about the sacred earth versus the U.S. military? I mean, I think that in real life, nature is not our friend. Civilization is our friend, medicine is our friend, technology is our friend, and the U.S. military is largely our friend. And I just think it's just getting so tiresome to watch left-wing Hollywood diss the military that protects them. I personally would like to see the military withdraw its protection from Malibu and see how quickly James Cameron moves out.
Okay, you've said a number of very interesting things there, so let's get started on going into the issues. Number one, that it's unoriginal. Totally agree. We don't have to discuss that any further. It's just like Pocahontas, Dances with Wolves. When we did our original movie review, I called it Dances with Aliens.
Exactly.
So I get that. Everybody gets that. But, he takes... The other way of looking at that, of course, is that he takes timeless themes and puts them in his movies, like Titanic, a love story that was fairly bland, but seems to have worked, right? So he knows how to work those themes, but I agree with you, totally unoriginal. Now, point number two about the American military. First of all, in the movie, they weren't the American military. They were mercenaries, basically. They were rented by the corporations, right? So it's not really the American military. Now, do, former military guys that are rented by governments or corporations in the world, have they done some bad things? I think it's fairly indisputable that they have. You look at Blackwater and 17 people killed in the, in that town center in Iraq, let alone all those private corporations that wound up not giving the services they were supposed to our soldiers, to our troops, poisoning the water that was in their shower water, got all those troops, sick, and the list goes on and on. They're doing it for money. And if you do it for money and you give people guns and weapons and say, all right, now go, earn money with it, can you see how that might create a problem, Andrew?
My problem here was that I felt that the trick of making them mercenaries, which is exactly one sentence at the beginning of the movie, was basically a cop-out. It was basically Cameron trying not to alienate people so that he'd make his $500 million back. Because the truth is, all through the film, they wear military outfits. The villain, who is a cartoon villain, you got to admit, the guy comes right out of the Saturday morning TV shows.
But so is Dick Cheney. I mean, he's
uniform. They call him by his rank. It really is, and Cameron himself, by the way, has suggested that this is his commentary on the Iraq War, which is just absurd. It's just absurd.
No, but that is not absurd. So let's go to that point. Okay?
They're after this stuff, unobtainium, which in the case of that metaphor would be oil, and nobody can make a coherent case that we were fighting in Iraq for oil. It's just not sensible or logical.
All right. Well, let me try then and see how it goes along with you. All right. First of all, let me just make a quick note that unobtainium is perhaps the worst word in any movie.
You know, I thought so too, but just to speak on his behalf, to give the devil his due, I'm told that is a joke that engineers make when they have some hard-to-find material. So I thought it was ridiculous, but an engineer told me that was actually an inside joke of some sort.
I get it, but it's just so clunky for the average person. It's terrible. All right, anyway, so they're going for oil. It's obvious. Everybody gets it, right? He's not subtle about it, so we understand. So is that partly what happened in Iraq? Did it happen all over Latin America, including Ecuador? Did we at times use mercenaries? Did we at times use the military? Yes. Okay. Now, here's the thing, Andrew. Now that we're withdrawing from Iraq, or going to withdraw in 2011, you say, well, we didn't get the oil. So it couldn't have been about the oil. But that wasn't Dick Cheney's plan. Dick Cheney's plan was to stay in Iraq for as long as conceivable and to invade Iran. And he doesn't deny that. That was his plan. And then in which case he would be sitting on top of the most important oil resources in the Middle East. We already have a deal with Saudi Arabia, and guess what happens? You lock up the oil. So,
but that's silly. I mean, he's attacking Iran. The place is a madhouse, trying to build nuclear weapons. It makes perfect sense to attack Iran.
No, but Andrew, then let me ask you this:
we're never going to steal those people's oil. We pay them good money for their oil all the time.
No, but Andrew,
it's silly.
The question isn't who buys the oil, because we could buy it either way. The question is who sells the oil. And it's American corporations that need to be selling that oil. That's part of the question. But yeah, look, think about it this way. Think about it this way.
I would rather be paying money to almost anybody but the Iranians. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Okay, think about it this way.
No, here's the thing.
No, Andrew, hold on. I gotta make this point related to the point you made. Okay, because you say, oh, nuclear weapons, they might be making them, and that's really dangerous, and that's why Dick Cheney thought we had to act in Iran. But wait a minute, the Bush administration sat back for 8 years as North Korea developed nuclear weapons, and we never even hinted at invading North Korea. So if the real concern was weapons of mass destruction or nuclear weapons, wouldn't the real problem be North Korea, which, by the way, is much more unstable and ruled by an absolutely maniacal dictator?
You know, here's my problem. I mean, there's an answer to that, and the Bush administration tried to take a tack of negotiating in Korea, which was probably a mistake, but they just had run out of political capital. But here's my problem. Here's my problem. I have no problem at all with James Cameron being a liberal guy making his liberal movie. I have no problem with that, believe me. I believe that everybody with talent, and there's no question the guy has talent, should make his movie. My problem is with Hollywood and an entertainment industry that has become so locked down, and you can throw the news industry in there too if you want. It's become so locked down with a single point of view and a single opinion. Let me make this personal for a minute, okay? Because it is personal for me. I work not only in the industry, I make most of my living as a novelist. I've got a new novel out. It's called The Long Way Home. It's a thriller for young adults. Your audience would probably lose their hair if they read this book because it features a kid who is a Christian, and he's pro-American, and he's fighting Islamofascists who they're not called by any fancy name, they're just called Islamofascists. Every review in the mainstream, now kids love this book. I mean, this book, the first book in the series was a bestseller. This one I hope will be a bestseller. Every review in the mainstream media shakes its finger at me, wags its finger at me for having a patriot in the story, and some of them wag their finger at me for having a kid who has faith. Every movie that gets made, every book and novel that gets written faces a wall of critical opinion, both inside the industry and outside the industry, that prevents people from expressing a range of views. So it's really not Avatar, this picture or that picture. It's Avatar coming at the end of a long chain of anti-war movies that were made reprehensibly, in my opinion, while our soldiers were in the field.
But I'm missing that criticism.
There's nothing wrong with opposing the war. There's something truly wrong with making powerful propaganda tools that support the enemy and hurt our troops while they're in the field. And it's one after another after another. It's so cliched and so conformist and so old hat that I just think Hollywood needs a revolution that lets new voices in there and lets new people say what they have to say.
Andrew, you really lost me on that. We're talking to Andrew Klavan. He's a successful screenwriter in Hollywood, written movies like True Crime and Don't Say a Word, and his new book is The Long Way Home, as he just shared there with you. I'm not sure I'm getting it, because you're saying that Avatar is bad because it puts out this liberal point of view, and you're saying furthermore, which is more interesting, that you shouldn't even criticize the government when the troops are in the field, their foreign policy at least. But at the same time, you're worried that they're criticizing your book because it's too conservative. How does that make sense?
I'm sorry, say that again?
At the same time, you're worried that they're criticizing your book too much because it's too conservative. Well,
No,
how can you criticize Avatar?
I didn't say you shouldn't criticize the government, but dramatizing in a film the U.S. military and U.S. soldiers as sadistic, as murdering, and it happened again and again and again with every new Iraq war and war on terror film that came out, dramatizing them as rapists and torturers and killers in a movie, which is a very powerful propaganda tool. Much of what the world knows about us, it knows through our films.
All right, let's break it down. Hold on, Andrew. You got to break it down.
It's a bad act.
You got to break it down to different things. One, you're saying Cameron's allowed to. You don't like his movie, right? It's obvious, right? So if people don't like your book, well, then what's wrong with that? Okay, even if they're liberals, so they don't like your book and you don't like his movie, aren't we even?
I'm simply saying that when you have an entertainment industry, and I'm talking about fiction and movies, controlled by L.A. and New York, where everybody has the same opinion, everybody. It simply means
well, you're in Hollywood, and you don't have the same opinion.
And that it's a form. Look, it's not a conspiracy. I don't believe it's a conspiracy. It's a form of tacit censorship because it gets to be where you go in. I'll tell you experiences I've had where you walk in to sell something in a room in Hollywood, and they immediately open up on, say, George W. Bush when he was in office. They'd immediately start talking about how evil he was and how awful he was. How can you sell your material in that situation?
But Andrew, I mean that seems. And I mean, it's not like they don't allow you to. It's private enterprise. Why don't you raise the money and make your own movies? I mean, first of all, you're already successful in Hollywood, so there's a little disconnect there. Number two, people. It almost sounds. Well, I don't want to get into that analogy, but look, what I always say to people when they complain, "Oh, the movies are like this," is. Okay, then make your own movie. I mean, aren't there a lot of rich conservatives in the country? Can't they start a movie industry? It is a free market, right?
You would think so. You would think so, but it really doesn't work that way because the industry is governed at the top. It's not just the talent. It is governed at the top by the same liberal worldview. I mean, recently, it's nuts. I mean, Mel Gibson made his picture Passion of the Christ by reaching into his pocket and taking the money out of his own pocket. Okay?
And he was successful. You see that? The free market works.
He was massively successful. But, I mean, the way they treated Jesus in that movie was not as bad as the way they treated Mel Gibson. The guy was beaten into the ground.
Well, Mel Gibson had other issues. Wouldn't you agree, Andrew?
What's that?
I mean, but Mel Gibson had other issues. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, yes, he does. But
okay.
wait a minute. The guy's an artist. He has a dark side. I acknowledge that. But other artists have dark sides, and they get away with all kinds of stuff. Take Roman Polanski, for instance.
But, Andrew, look. No, hold on. Let's not go into Roman Polanski.
Gibson was abandoned.
No, we have too little time to go into Roman Polanski, where we probably agree anyway. So, listen, it's like saying, well, radio is dominated by conservatives, which it is. So, and what we did, and we're still on radio, but mainly what we did was, okay, then we started an internet show that is enormously successful. So it seems a little like belly aching to me, to be honest with you. I mean, get the job done.
When you say that, though, I'm reminded of the gangster in a Raymond Chandler novel where he says, first he punches you in the teeth and then he kicks you in the stomach for mumbling. First they attack us.
So do you agree that radio is too conservative and they need to open up?
No, I think it's the same thing. But it's not that liberals are kept off the air. I mean, they're given.
It's not like you're kept from writing screenplays.
Yes, but it is such that when conservatives meet in Hollywood, they drop their voices because they're afraid of getting fired. I'm a loudmouth. I've come out and I've said, and I say what I have to say. I write it in the LA Times. I write it in the Wall Street Journal, and I've taken the hits for it. I have felt the cost. Believe me, I really have. But not everybody can do that, I mean, not everybody, especially guys who are coming up in level, who are trying to get into the business, can do that. And I think it's a stifling atmosphere. And by the way, just here's something we do agree on. I don't think the responsibility for this lies with liberals, by the way. I'm not blaming liberals. I'm blaming conservatives. I mean, I think the problem really is that conservatives don't pay enough attention to the culture, and they've given it over to you guys. I think that was a big mistake.
Whoa.
So I understand from that point of view. I would say, yes, I'm not belly aching. I'm not calling on liberals to stop making movies. I am calling on conservatives to start start to say, we don't want to see Law and Order every week where the Christian guy is always the killer. We don't, the white capitalist.
That's not true.
We're sick of that.
That's not true. The Christian guy is almost never the killer. But anyway, Andrew, one last thing here we got to touch on. And Andrew Klavan's new book is The Long Way Home. And I've seen some positive reviews, so don't sell yourself short.
Thanks.
Okay, I always try to find some sort of, agreement, right? So, and I try to see how you're looking at this. You see they always paint the military in a bad light, et cetera, when the military is heroic. Today on the show we talked about what a great job we're doing in Haiti. And we got a chant of USA, USA today, and it warmed my heart when we talked about that, right? But can you also see, so obviously we do some great things. Now that was the L.A. Rescue Division, but it's the U.S. military that's making that happen, right? Organizing things. So obviously there's a tremendous great side of America. And that's why I love this country. That's why I came here. But can you also see that we did overthrow governments in Latin America? We did overthrow the democratically elected government of Iran back in 1951, et cetera, in the 1950s. And that, a country like Ecuador, which I think this movie, Avatar, is more about Ecuador than it is about Iraq, when corporate America comes in throughout all these years and wants to be the companies who take that oil out of the ground and make more money on it, overthrows their government if they disagree. Can you see we've done some bad as well, and that's why this movie might be successful in the world, because they've seen that with their own eyes and hence relate to the movie?
Every country that has human beings in it does evil things, and America is no exception. But the fact is that when you have a culture like our culture that encourages you and me to sit and yell at each other, and then we can go off and talk to each other, we don't have to hate each other, we don't have to kill each other, we can argue. When we have a culture that encourages freedom, when we have a culture that encourages rule of law, you're going to ultimately have people, by and large, who do better things. You're going to ultimately have a culture that, by and large, does better things. And so that culture needs to be defended from assaults like people like the Islamics who are out of their mind and are against
don't say Islamics.
Don't
do that, Andrew. Don't say Islamics. There's over 1 billion Muslims in the world.
I'm not talking about
You don't want to
Muslims.
alienate them. You don't want to make enemies out of them. Can you see that?
They're already our enemies, and I'm not talking about Muslims.
All Muslims?
I'm talking about Islamists. I'm talking about people who want, call them Islamofascists, call them Islamists, jihadis, whatever you want to call them. I'm not just talking about the run-of-the-mill Muslim. I'm talking about these guys with a passion for destroying the infidel.
If you call them Islamics,
you got to face them down.
If you call them Islamics and
Islamists,
okay,
Islamists.
Okay, all right. Can you see that that's in their mind that might look like a small distinction from all people who believe in Islam? I mean, it's like you're worried about. They did a Law and Order episode where a Christian was turned out to be the guilty guy, and at the same time, it appears that you're spearing 1 billion people. Can you not see the disconnect there?
No, I'm talking about a philosophy, and I'm talking about the people who follow that philosophy. And I think you have to call things by their names in order.
But that is not the name. There is no such name as Islamofascist or Islamist, etc. There's Islamic fundamentalists, okay? And that, believe me, we agree on that.
You can call it whatever you want to call it. I'm just saying that when you hear what they have to say, it's a question of ideas. See, that's the thing. You can't bring it down to this individual and that individual. It's a question of ideas. And I feel that the left has abandoned the idea of liberty, has abandoned the idea that a culture of liberty is better than a culture of slavery. And I feel
that's obviously absurd. So, now, Andrew, we're out of time. But, because if we get into the conversation of who stands for liberty better, liberals or conservatives, I'll win, but it'll take a long time. Okay, maybe on another day. All right, Andrew, thank you so much. And to all the conservatives who fought for liberty, like the people who were opposed to the American Revolution, we thank you for coming on. I had to get a little dig in there, a little dig. The book is The Long Way Home, and thanks for coming on, Andrew.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Young Turks.